The Vietnam War took place from 1955 to 1975. During these 20 years, North Vietnam fought the South and the United States over communism. The biggest question was, why was the United States even involved in the war? The men fighting in Vietnam and even the people back in the U.S. opposed the war. Many things that the U.S. government did were questionable, whether it was sending more men to Vietnam or not getting out of the war when everybody thought that it was the best option. The Vietnam War was very controversial. People at home wondered why we were fighting a war for people who didn't even respect us. Agent Orange is a powerful herbicide that was used by the United States military forces during the Vietnam War to get rid of the trees and crops in the area to seek the northern Vietnamese soldiers. Agent Orange got its name because it was held in a storage drum with an orange stripe on the container. It was a deadly herbicide that contained the chemical dioxin. This herbicide was used from 1962 to 1971, and in that time, around 50 million liters of it were dropped on Vietnam. Other agents, such as Agents White, Purple, Blue, Pink, and Green, were also used in Vietnam. Exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam later developed a large number of cancers and other health disorders, including miscarriages, skin diseases, birth defects, and congenital malformations. Babies that were born with birth defects as a result of Agent Orange are known as orange babies. Agent Orange not only affected the Vietnamese soldiers, but it also harmed Vietnamese citizens, future generations, and U.S. soldiers that came into contact with it. This herbicide caused more destruction than it was meant to cause.
When the Vietnam vets came home after the war, they were greeted by angry Americans who would spit at them and flip them off. They were also told that they would receive benefits from the government. Most vets didn't receive anything.
The draft is the selective service system used to recruit soldiers for the Vietnam War. The U.S. has used the draft 6 times in its history. The most memorable are probably World War II and the Vietnam War. The draft was during December 1st in 1969 for Vietnam. About 2.2 million Americans were drafted, but only 648,500 were actually served. And people avoided the draft by being a conscious objector. They made up health conditions. They have children who need them. They were homosexual. They ran away to Canada or went to college. Or they had a high lottery number. They held an essential job. They got married. They forged their military ID paper. They enlisted it into the army for the reserves. And they were also a woman. People who decided to run away to Canada risked not being able to back into the country, but these people were later pardoned. This is a representation of the draft being televised. People would watch the draft on their TV or TVs at the bar. The men in the video are picking out random dates, and if you had this date and you were born in the years 1944 all the way to 1950, that means you were drafted for the war.
In most people's opinion, the draft was in favor of rich men. Rich men were the most likely to go to college because they could afford it. In order to get into the reserves, your family had to know somebody, and the rich men could afford doctors, which meant if they had a medical issue, the doctors could write them a doctor's note and get them out of the draft.